He set out alone, searching for peace in the quiet forests of Mount Hood. But nature had other plans. For 7 days, he vanished without a trace. This is his story, a tale of fear, hope, and human endurance against all odds. 7 days in the shadow of Mount Hood. John Doe's first morning in the Mount Hood wilderness began with an almost unbearably cold silence. He awoke beneath ancient firs whose branches formed a dense canopy overhead, turning the dawn light into a mere suggestion of gold through the mist. His breath rose in small white clouds before him as he fumbled for his GPS watch, only to find the screen blank and unresponsive. For a moment, he simply stared at it, heart thundering in his chest. In the absence of technology he had come to rely on, he reminded himself of the compass clipped to his belt and set off, tracing a bearing through tangled undergrowth. Within minutes, a misplaced step sent him tumbling down a rocky incline. He landed with a harsh grunt, the damp earth and loose stones biting through his clothing. Sitting up, he realized the laces of his boot had come undone, and the sole was soaked. The forest around him felt suddenly oppressive and endless. Every tree looked like the one before it, and the trail he had followed so confidently vanished in every direction. That afternoon, John marched on with cautious determination. Each careful step became part of a slow choreography to stay upright and oriented. When evening approached, he paused to construct a makeshift lean-to from fallen branches and dry needles. His hands trembled as he adjusted the shelter's angle, trying to keep the creeping wind from extinguishing the small campfire he coaxed to life. Half-eaten granola bars provided the evening meal, rationed down to tiny bites that felt more ritual than sustenance. He reminded himself repeatedly that he need only survive one more day, one more hour, and that focus on the moment was the only way forward. As the forest settled into night, insects drifted in a low chorus, and an owl's call sounded distant and mournful. The fire sputtered under sudden gusts of wind, but each time it doused, John leaned close and coaxed it back, unwilling to let the cold claim him. On the third morning, as pale sunlight danced on the surface of a rushing creek, John stooped to fill his water bottle and froze at the sight of a ragged backpack snagged on a log. The name tag, J. Doe, was written in familiar block letters, the same handwriting he used. For a moment, his heart pounded so hard he feared it would give him away to some unseen observer. The pack contained his spare jacket, mysteriously vanished the day before, alongside his empty bottle and a yellowed photograph of an unfamiliar woman. The incongruity felt like a message. He was not alone in this forest, though no one was visible. A rush of panic threatened to overwhelm him, but he forced himself to step back, to breathe, and to decide that tomorrow might bring understanding if he could just hold on. By the fourth day, unease had become a constant companion. John's pace quickened as he pushed through thick ferns and brambles, the constant snap of twigs underfoot echoing back at him. At one point, a soft, haunting melody drifted on the breeze, a lullaby without a source, only to vanish the moment he looked around. Later, he discovered a crude, turn-back sign nailed to a towering pine. The handwriting was jagged, urgent. He scanned the trees for anyone, anything, but saw only shifting shadows. Adrenaline carried him onward. He dared not linger to question whom the warning was meant for, or whether it was meant for him. That evening, John reached a rocky ridge just as the sun dipped below distant peaks. He stood at the precipice and gazed down at a narrow dirt road carving its way through a lush valley. Relief washed over him in a wave so strong he sank to his knees and pressed his palms into the cold ground. Hope flickered to life in his chest. He retrieved his phone in a final act of frustration, still dead, and pounded it against his thigh before letting it fall at his feet. In the gathering twilight, he shouted at the empty air, listening as his own voice drifted away, swallowed by the trees. Yet when he finally sat in stunned silence, two tiny points of amber appeared below on the road. Headlights, precise and deliberate. In one last surge of optimism, he sprinted down the slope, every step fueled by renewed belief. The following night brought what felt like rescue. A green SUV, its familiar Forest Service insignia emblazoned on the doors, skidded to a halt beside him. Two figures emerged and offered water, warmth, and promises of safety. As they hoisted him inside, John's trembling hands betrayed tears of relief. The engine roared to life, and the world blurred past the windows. He closed his eyes, convinced his ordeal was over. Yet when he finally dared to open them again, the vehicle was eerily still, parked in the same place, but empty. The driver's seat was vacant, the passenger's side deserted. No tracks in the soft soil, no echo of voices or distant engines. He staggered out, alone once more, the promise of sanctuary evaporated like mist. Night deepened, and the forest seemed to close in. John's legs felt leaden, his mind dizzy with exhaustion. He sank against a fir, his breath shallow. In the flicker of his phone's screen, blessedly alive, appeared a single message. Follow the light. Far ahead, something glowed faintly amber between the trunks. Compelled by a mixture of dread and desperate faith, he rose and moved toward it, each breath a white plume in the chill air. Before dawn fully broke, John stepped cautiously along a narrow woodland path, illuminated by the gentle glow of a lantern swinging from an old oak branch. Carved beneath it, in letters weathered by time, the words "Trust yourself" stood out against rough bark. For the first time since he lost the trail, he felt a sense of clarity beneath the lantern's warmth. He lifted the lantern and turned, following a path that opened as if by magic, no longer overgrown, but clear and worn. Each step felt lighter, guided by an invisible hand. At sunrise, he emerged at the forest's edge onto a gravel service road. Rifle tacks dotted the utility poles lining the way, and an abandoned Crown Victoria sat silent under the early light. He wrapped himself in a thermal blanket draped over his shoulders, heart pounding with unfiltered gratitude. Soon, a passing hiker noticed him and alerted the waiting search party, who came rushing down the road. Hands reached out, voices buzzed with relief, and John allowed himself to be led to safety. 7 days had tested every fiber of his resolve. He realized, in that moment of rescue, that the tools he carried, maps, phones, compasses, were merely aids. The true beacon that guided him through storm and shadow was something deeper, an unbreakable spark of hope, the quiet conviction that he could endure, adapt, and find his way. In the silent triumph of that dawn, John Doe learned that even within the darkest, most unforgiving wilderness, the human spirit can kindle its own guiding light.